To be able to see and predict the trends of this year and next, we first have to understand the history of graphic design trends throughout the last 100 years. There is no way to predict a future trend without knowing where styles came from in the first place. We are very lucky to be in our position to be able to draw on such a wonderful, rich design history. Let's talk about that design history. For every major style and design movement, there is a counter movement. No one style within a movement dominates forever. Sub-movements continue to span decades, producing several different sub-styles, and then evolves into the next movement. When a dominant style fades out, they can still be influential in the future as a foundation and inspiration for a future style or movement. You will notice how some art movements were started as a counter to a previously dominant art or design movement of the time. For example, the latest postmodern movement was a counter to the austere, simplistic, purposeful, and calculated Swiss design style that absolutely dominated the design space for decades in the mid-20th century. This is also true for the Bauhaus movement, which was a response to the Art Nouveau movement. Art Nouveau is very ornamental with lots of details, as well as Art Deco, which was encouraged to have lots of fine lines, details, and flourishes. The German Bauhaus movement tried to reduce all unnecessary components for the sake of giving a design a single driving purpose to be clear and on point, with the Swiss design style taking that even further with the use of grids. It is safe to say that even today, these back-and-forth style movements are evident in current design trends. For example, the Web 2.0 micro style that was popular with logo design in the first decade of the 21st century had lots of glossy, realistic effects. This design style overtook most new logos that came out at the time, to the point where designers wanted to challenge the over-acceptance of that trend and the overuse. As a response, there was a movement back toward flat, simplistic logo designs, void of unnecessary details, gloss, and effects like gradients and drop shadows. And once again, as of late, we're starting to see a movement away from flat design and more toward expressive typography, like handwritten typography and movement like we're currently seeing. Trends change and evolve, but they also have a history that they're built on, and understanding that history is important. I like to compare art and design movements to a multiple floored building, with a level underneath being required to build the next level. Please do further research into the history of design styles. You'll find it incredibly fascinating. It'll help you predict future design trends and how to be a forward-thinking designer. What was popular in the past can be popular once more, but sometimes with an added fresh twist. One example of this is psychedelic design. Popular in the 1960s and 70s, it's actually starting to make a comeback. This is most likely because of the oversaturation of this flat, simple design that has been popular in the last decade. This trend allows for more expression and movement in design, which challenges the status quo. Designers always like to push the boundary of what is popular and acceptable. Without this constant push, we would be perpetually stuck in the same trends that last forever, and design would become stale. Psychedelic design can be full of non-repeating patterns, shapes, and curves. The style is very maximalist, which is the opposite of minimalist. Minimalism uses as little as possible to communicate a message, and maximalism uses design in every available space to communicate as much as possible between the lines. We've been in a time frame of dominant minimalism for quite some time now, which really started off with a very flat Swiss design style. With better software, apps, and technology, we no longer have to use such simple fonts and colors everywhere. Our browsers can now handle more action and movement, typography, and patterns. So I see a slow swing back to the maximalism design in the future. Maximalism can sometimes be hard to embrace as a designer. especially if we were trained in the simple Swiss-style movements with strict geometric shapes and minimalist typography. The key to maximalism is not to overwhelm or make a design busy for the sake of filling out empty white spaces, but is to allow the viewer to better experience the subtleties of design and meanings in your design through color, patterns, text, and shapes. So there's way more complexity, which allows some time for people to stay a while and look at the design and really soak it in. The power of minimalism is simplicity and how it helps a person feel at ease and calm because everything is so organized and simple. With maximalism, we give a viewer not calmness, but we give them energy through design elements and a sense of movement and patterns. Maximalism allows a designer to play with imperfection and excess. This desire to no longer be perfect is at the heart of us all who are overworked members of society today. And creating a piece that has rounded, fun, custom typography with little things that may not be perfectly symmetrical could be a breath of fresh air for us. Another emerging trend that is a trend from the past is the 1990s grunge style, which once again is a maximalist concept. More the merrier, with lines, geometric shapes, hand-drawn elements, and torn textures and pages. The biggest generation, the millennials, and also my generation, are becoming some of the biggest consumers today. They grew up in the 1990s, myself included, and have a lot of nostalgia and engage with this type of design. I think the style will emerge once again to allow that generation to relive a little bit of their childhood and teenage past. To continue to track along the maximalist theme, we can also see emerging trends in typography that allows detailed, custom serif typefaces to take center stage. These are not your standard serifs that closely resemble default fonts on your computer, but these are art unto themselves, featuring more loops, expressive ball terminals, and connection points. Some of these typefaces might seem a little strange at first, but that's the beauty of them. They make you stop and go, oh, now that is something unique, something interesting for a change. Look at the strange terminals and stems on that one. It's all about individuality with typefaces, avoiding the bland and overused. Some may even have characters that almost hug each other with those sexy curves. A lot of them will feature a unique character, like the lower closed loop of this G. The key to using this trend well is making sure when things need to be legible, they are. When things do not need to be legible and they're background noise, it's okay to be a little bit more wild. It's a delicate balance when picking the right typeface or customizing your own. Having expression without ruining the functionality of your design. In the next lesson, we get to review 8 different typefaces that I've chosen as these wonderful, beautifully expressive typefaces. Not only that, we're going to be working through a few quick practical projects using some of the typefaces that I think are going to become more popular 2022 and beyond.